The first wrestling match I ever saw was GRACIE versus Mortis from WCW, and I remember at the time, because I was a massive Mortal Kombat fan and I was a massive fan of Sub-Zero, that GRACIE was just like Sub-Zero, and like that's what drew me into wrestling the first time, was these like video game characters come to life on TV. That was the reason, because it was like Mortal Kombat.
The first match I believe I ever saw was Dave Finlay against Danny Boy Collins on the Mick McManus World of Wrestling videotape. And funny story, later, years obviously becoming a wrestler, I met both Fit Finlay and Danny Collins, and I told them that they were in the first ever match I watched as a 5-year-old, and I'm not too sure how much they appreciated it, but I of course appreciated the match. And what a match to be your first ever contest, the great Fit Finlay against Danny Boy Collins.
Alright, my first memories of wrestling were being at my cousin's house, because they had Sky, they had all the videotapes, they had the wrestlers. I didn't really have access to it, but what I did see was on Channel 22 when it switched over to TNT. I did see a match with Ric Flair. I remember hating him, so he was doing his job properly. But the match that really caught my attention when I was a kid was The Rock versus Shane McMahon in a cage. And when I saw that, I decided I would have to check out a little bit more about this pro wrestling nonsense. And here we are.
I first remember my mum taking me to the Scunthorpe Baths Hall when I was around 8 or 9. And the first real match that I remember seeing was Ray Robinson, who was a local guy, versus Skull Murphy. And ever since that first show, I've been hooked on wrestling since then. But that was my first recollection of my first match I remember seeing live.
So the first match that I ever saw that made me want to be a professional wrestler is WrestleMania 10, Bret Hart versus Owen Hart. That match was amazing. I mean, it was technical, we had characters, we had everything that's needed to make a perfect match. And after watching that, I thought, I want to do this. And now, here I am.
So I don't particularly have a first memory of wrestling, but the first one that really stands out to me is Rock versus Austin, WrestleMania 17. The hype video alone fueled passion for wrestling, and also a passion for video work as well, which I went to do at university and then didn't carry on. So, but wrestling I carried on, I loved it.
My first experience of wrestling, what made me get into it, was I saw Billy Kidman do a shooting star press off it was like a Sunday night heat on Channel 4, but ever since then I was hooked on. First match was the Survivor Series 2001, where The Rock and Stone Cold had their ending, you know. Yeah, awe-inspiring, absolutely incredible match, so we had to follow up on that.
I think the first wrestling match I ever watched was Rock versus Austin, WrestleMania 15. After that I was hooked. You've got charisma, you've got big bodies, you've got dramatics, everything, you've got the lot. You had finisher kick-outs, you had, the crowd was crazy. That whole pay-per-view for me was the one that basically dragged me into the business, and I've never looked back since. Hopefully one day we'll be taking this place where past Orlando, past WrestleMania, and starring in our own main events. So, laters.
Well, there was 2 instances of the first wrestling matches I ever seen. I remember I was at my cousin's house and he had a VHS, and on that VHS was Nails versus Big Boss Man. I think it was a loser goes to jail match, and I was captivated by that, but I can't really remember what happened, but I remember the first ever match that I got a hold of and that properly introduced me to wrestling was the World Tour 89-90, and it was the Rockers versus the Rougeaus in Paris. The Rougeaus rather, in Paris. And ever since then, I think me and my brother Mark were trying to emulate the Rockers and things like that. So that was the first taste of wrestling that I had when I was younger.
First match I ever saw that made me truly love this business was Ultimate Warrior versus Randy Savage at WrestleMania 7. That match for me was perfect example of what pro wrestling, certainly as far as an entertainment vehicle, can be. You had everything from the drama to the great moves, the great action, to the emotional ending with Elizabeth and Randy Savage getting back together after years apart. And that made me a fan for life, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. I know certain Stephanie McMahon finds that moment to be among her favourites of all time.